All right. My name's Kyle Posey. You guys already know that. We are joined today by Justis Mosqueda, who clearly you can see by the background, Packers fan. Justice, what's going on, man?
I'm currently sitting on an air mattress right now because my buddy had to crash in my office for a couple days because his power went out because we got a whole bunch of ice in the Northwest. But Cal Posey, I'm letting you guys know he came inside after just starting the record, not starting the recording, but starting the Zoom outdoors, which I'm very jealous about because there's no way in hell I could do that in Oregon right now.
Yeah, I think what's the weather right now? 63 degrees where I am right now. Freezing
We got
cold
we got
in
freezing rain,
Arizona.
so
We whenever we have to put on long sleeves, it's considered, worst case scenario. Um Today we're going to talk about 49ers-Packers, obviously, but we're not going to talk about skill players.
do we have
Everybody
to?
talks about skill players. All right. Um, all you've heard this week leading up is, Jordan Love, Brock Purdy, Brandon Ayuk, Jalen Reed, like all of the skill players, the people who catch the touchdowns, and that's what the common folk want to talk about. But I want to talk to Justice here about the trenches. I want to talk about the offensive line, the defensive line on both sides of the ball. It's I don't want to say like it's more entertaining because that's not true, but like this is where the matchup, like this is where the game is going to be decided, right? If the Packers are going to upset the 49ers, it's because they were able to get into passing lanes, tip the ball in the air, just force turnovers in that sense. They're going to be able to run the ball on the 49ers because they got movement against the defensive line. So let's talk about that. And in my mind, it's really tough to quantify trench play. Like, where do you go to get accurate information about Zach Tom? It just doesn't exist on the internet. Like, the only way for you to understand how good Eric Armstead is as a player is to watch him play the game. Like, the casual fan doesn't know. Like, when you line him up over a guard, he is not going to get blocked. There's no way for us to tell the common folk that. So, like, that's really what I want to get into today. So let's kind of start with that side of the ball, right? So numbers suggest that the Packers protect the quarterback at a very high level. Sack avoidance is a skill, and Jordan Love does a really good job of that. But I want to pretend to at least give the offensive line some credit. So when it comes to pass rush, whether it's one on one, who gives you the most confidence along the Packers offensive line?
Um, so Elton Jenkins, the left guard, is probably the biggest name on the offensive line, right? But he's been kind of dealing with a knee injury this year that he's, been clearly pushing through. He's been limited in practices and stuff like that pretty much throughout the season. The guy who's actually had the best year, I think, is probably Zach Tom, the right tackle. He was a
Elton
rookie last
Jenkins,
year.
left guard, by the way, 49ers fans, for those of you that aren't
Yes.
familiar with him.
And Zach Tom is the right tackle. Tom just basically pitched a perfect game against the Dallas Cowboys last week. Micah Parsons, I think this was came from Next Gen Stats. Micah Parsons had like a 5% pressure rate in that game, and his one pressure came on an unblocked pressure. That was the lowest pressure rate of any game Micah Parsons has ever played at the NFL level. The Packers do a pretty good job of um, handling guys on the edges. They have a pretty good plan in terms of having chip help or having a running back stay in and block. It's kind of been an interesting thing recently. I know we're supposed to be talking about trenches, but running backs do kind of play a part here. Um,
You don't say.
Aaron Aaron Jones popped. Well, I know you and your little high school playbook running routes with your running backs every single play. So I didn't know if you were aware. Aaron Jones like stuck in protection a couple times, and one of them he popped Micah Parsons real hard in the ribs, and it led to him going off the field on like a critical third down and stuff like that. So even though the Packers might not have AJ Dillon, who we're recording this on a Wednesday, he hasn't practiced. The Packers didn't have a practice on Tuesday. They kind of had a lighter practice on Wednesday. AJ Dillon was, estimated on Tuesday to be a non-participant, and then on Wednesday he was actually a non-participant. So it's not like the Packers have a ton of depth behind Jones, and Jones isn't. I mean, Jones might be 180 pounds right now, so it's
Right.
not like he's the biggest dude in protection. But they will use him in protection if they need him.
So when I think about, this matchup in general, the Packers have three day three starters along the offensive line. 49ers, Nick Bosa was not a day three player for those who are not familiar with the NFL draft. Eric Armstead, first round pick. He's going to be playing his first game about a month and a half, pretty much. Javon Hargrave wasn't a first round pick, but anybody who's familiar with the NFL draft like knows he was a freak athlete coming out and he went to a small school. Like if he went to Alabama, he's probably going to go,
I
top
saw that
50.
guy do backflips in his pads in
Right. Like
Mobile.
he's not normal. Yes, exactly. Um, Chase Young, like he's the other person who's probably going to start
Oh
because
yeah, that guy.
yeah, Cleveland Farrell, another first round pick, is a hurt. So like 49, it's first round up front, and their backups, Javon Kinlaw, first rounder. So they are very talented up front. Do you think that the talent gap is too sizable for the Packers to overcome, or is this one of those systems where a lot, like we're going to talk about when we flip sides here, because the 49ers outside of Trent Williams, like it's a lot of, day three caliber guys. So is this more of a cohesion thing? Is it going to be a scheme where Love gets rid of it quick? Or is it just, hey man, like I'm gonna need you to hold up against Nick Bosa for these for set of plays for 2 seconds?
Yeah, I think the Packers game plan is going to be try to wear him down, right? The Packers in general have been a um low amount of plays offense this year, right? They're trying to take a lot of time off the clock. When I've looked at some of the stats about, how fast they are to like snap the ball, for example, right? And they're like tippy top of the league in terms of like fewest amount of seconds left, when the clock is winding down, right? Against the Dallas Cowboys, this another stat that came from Next Gen Stats. The Packers were under center over 60% of the plays. That was the highest rate of any game in the NFL this year. The Packers game plan was definitely, ball control. We want to give the threat of the run game every single play. I think some of that has to do with the fact that the Dallas Cowboys were playing a whole lot of dime defense, right? They basically play like 205 pounders at the linebacker positions at times. I mean, maybe you wanted to play Micah Parsons at inside linebacker in that game, right? Maybe that would have been a better
Just
use
a
of his talent.
terrible game plan, man.
Yeah, Dan Quinn, please
Shocking.
stay in the NFC. Please
Yes.
take the Seahawks job.
Seahawks, yes, Seattle.
Yes, please
This is
take the
all you.
Seahawks job. But yeah, so that's a little bit of a different monster when it's Fred Warner, right, at linebacker than when it's one of these safeties cosplaying as a linebacker in these games. But I do think the Packers are going to try to do some ball control stuff. I think they're going to want to keep that defensive line on the field, try to wear them down, um, and definitely make it a little bit easier on their quarterback. I mean, you guys see it. How many times do you guys hear about Shanahan, McVay tree, all that stuff, and boot action, play action, run game, tying into the passing game and all that stuff? You're not going to see anything too different from this Packers team outside of like maybe third downs is really when they get into like straight up drop back pass.
It's funny you bring up time and possession because I was looking up this last week, and the Packers they run the fourth or their fourth slowest in the first half. So like LaFleur comes into the game thinking, I am not like he knows his defense, right? Like that's good coaching in my opinion. I am not going to give the opportunity to the offense to score points. And what does he do? He just finds different ways to get to his skilled players. Obviously, he trusts his quarterback, which goes a long way, in running down the clock. But that's not something you would expect. Just from an offensive guy to just kind of sit on the ball in the first half as they do. But I do think
Well,
that's
especially
that's
when
really
I
interesting.
mean, we're not talking about skill players. You told me don't talk about skill players, right? But Jordan Love since week 11, right? 21 touchdowns, one interception. You would
Not bad.
think that that's, high flying offense, all sorts of stuff. It really isn't. I mean, he's just being very efficient within the structure of the offense. And some of that does come back down to the trenches and kind of the whole mentality of trying to tie the run game into the pass game.
As somebody who is an avid advocator of success rate and greater sign EPA, Green Bay Packers, first half of the season, EPA team. Green Bay Packers, second half of the season, success rate team. Which one is better? Like, which one would you prefer? I think it's kind of proven itself. So when let's keep it pass protection here. We were talking about this a little bit beforehand when the 49ers, the games that they play up front are unlike a lot of teams that I've seen anywhere. Like D'Amico Ryan's really put his fingerprints on like the 3-man games that they play. So they'll put Young over a guard. They'll put Nick Bosa over a center. They'll put Armstead over a guard. They'll have wide nines on the along the edge, and they will guarantee that they get a one-on-one with their three best players against, for most teams, like their least athletic players. And it's just really tough to guard. They're going to go a bunch of different directions. They're going to cross your face there. basically going to bet on their athleticism to get to the quarterback before your offensive line can get to their spot. And it's a headache. They're going to, they're going to turn you around. How are the Packers when it comes to picking up these stunts, going against these games? And at the same time, like those players like Tom, they're going to have to be able to protect against a wide non-rusher.
Yeah, that used to be an issue for one of their guys, Royce Newman. So if he ends up coming into the game, that's a disaster scenario for the Packers.
Position?
But he's now been guard,
Okay.
guard. So yeah, he's one of the backups there, but he's gotten a whole lot of playing time over his 3 years in Green Bay. Um, they're actually pretty good at passing off stunts and stuff. And I think it's a philosophical thing with Green Bay. Everyone talks about kind of like the passing of the torch at the quarterback position, but their success at the offensive line is almost more impressive to me because they've been able to keep together really good pass protecting offensive lines for an ungodly amount of time. And really, I mean, the
My
key to it,
lifetime, basically.
yeah, your whole lifetime, which is longer than mine, you old bastard. But the whole key to it, right? Take super athletic offensive linemen who have a tackle background and can play at multiple spots, right? Where guys didn't know if a guy like Bakhtiari or a guy like Zach Tom was going to end up playing center or tackle at the NFL level. But when they pan out at tackle, that's pretty good for you. Or an Elton
Right.
Jenkins who can play all five spots and stuff like that. John Runyon Jr. got a little bit of opportunity to play tackle at the college level too. As far as guys I'm worried about, Myers is the guy, the center. He's the guy I worry about both in the run game and in the pass game, to be totally frank. I think he's kind of the weak link of the offense. They seem to really like him. They keep saying that he's playing the best ball of his career. I think you can watch the first drive of the Cowboys game. I think he gave up two like either pressure, run pressures, TFLs, in like the first three plays, and I was like, oh my god, it's just they're just gonna kick our ass up
It's
front,
coming.
with that one on one all game, but they ended up getting bailed out by some penalties, as Packer fans very well know. Um, but yeah, Myers is the guy I'm worried about. Outside of him, they've held up pretty well. I mean, Rasheed Walker, I don't know if he's the left tackle of the future. Um, but he sure has held up really well for his second year, seventh round pick. I mean, he was a guy that they were rotating in and out at left tackle with Josh Nyman, who was a guy who got, a second round tender in the offseason. Now he's moved to the bench because Walker has passed him on the depth chart. Nyman, again, this is how deep kind of that Packers offensive line was, right? Like they used a second round tender on a guy. He's their fourth tackle when everyone is healthy. Obviously, David Bakhtiari is out, so he's not really in the equation for this game. And then at right guard, the Packers are going to do this funky thing where they rotate John Runyon Jr. and Sean Ryan in basically every series. And most teams don't do that. It's something LaFleur's done a couple times in Green Bay. It goes back to something that some situation that he saw benefit out of back in his coaching days with the Houston Texans. So don't be surprised if there's a situation there where you're like, who's that Ryan kid? He's, third round, second year guy out of UCLA.
Yeah, that's something that the 49ers have done too along the offensive line. They draft a guard on day three. And instead of throwing him to the wolves, right, throwing him into the fire, they'll give him 30 players. They'll give him two series, make him sit one, just so he can see, right? And it worked for them. So I mean, maybe that's the LaFleur. I don't know if LaFleur was with Shanahan with the in Houston, but I wonder if that's where he got that idea from. It is kind of interesting to see that, to see people do that, or I guess start to do that along the offensive line, because like that's a defensive line thing that's been going on for a long, long time. Let's get back to the run, because in the second half of the season, the Niners were not good against the run. We talk about the Packers playing ball control. We talk about Aaron Jones as the running back. In the second half of the season, so after their bye week, week 10, the 49ers were 23rd in rushing success rate. They were 22nd in EPA per play. So whether it's down to down, whether it's allowing big plays, like they just were not good against the run. They were bottom 10. So there were like, what were the reasons? It was sloppy tackling. There were cutback lanes. I mean, you basically combine the two, and that's how you get basically a porous run defense. How confident are you in the Packers being able to run the ball? And in my mind, if LaFleur is really going to go out swinging, like I'm leaning on Jordan Love in this game to be I'm not going to say he's going to come out and they're going to run like, 19 zone reads or whatever, but I think he's going to sprinkle in some love runs in like high leverage situations because that has definitely hurt the 49ers over the past like 3 years or so. And obviously there are extreme examples when they go up against like a Kyler Murray type, Lamar Jackson. But do you think we're going to see love, and what kind of runs are we going to see, any sort of different runs with Aaron Jones, assuming he's going to get the bulk of the carries? I think.
Yeah. So first of all, love. I mean, you're just going to get traditional read option, right? You're not going to get power read or anything like that
Sure.
from them. They don't really run QB power or anything like that. He's not Taysom Hill, right? He's a
Great
little
play.
skinnier than that guy. Um, Jones is a guy that's gotten really hot recently. So, he's dealt with two hamstring issues, he dealt with a knee issue, and kind of the prevailing thought right now is that those injuries and withholding him from those hits this season maybe kind of helped him for this late season run. And with AJ Dillon out, and again, I cannot stress, AJ Dillon is probably not going to play in this game and hasn't in recent games. Um, Up until this last month, Jones didn't have a 100-yard rushing game. In the last four games, he's had four of them straight, right? They're basically giving him like 21 carries a game. Um, he had the three touchdowns against the Dallas Cowboys. He always does that in AT&T Stadium somehow. Um, Really just like zone runs with like pin and pull stuff and counter mixed in is kind of what they do right now. The counter stuff is kind of a new addition this year. The pin and pull was kind of an addition last year. Before then, they were really just just zone team, not really pulling any guards in any way. But they've, I think, had to kind of adjust what they've been doing, especially with some of these younger offensive linemen, where they just kind of want to get them on train tracks and get some movement up front. Um, I think they're going to want to run the ball. Honestly, I mean, again, look at the Dallas Cowboys game plan, right? They just wanted to push the ball forward. Again, I understand that the linebacker situation is a little bit different, but I don't think you want to shorten the game for that San Francisco 49ers offense and just give them even more possessions, right?
Yeah, pin and pull is actually the type of run that really gives him trouble. I'm thinking of who a Chase Young is, right? He's going to do his own thing. When you're thinking about Nick Bosa, like he's going to probably fly up the field. Them schematically, like they do a lot of movement, like they're going to pinch, right? They're going to try to cross your face. So with that in mind, like what better way to take it? Like let them take themselves out of play. So it
It's
is a
just
really good
down
run.
blocks become windshield wipers, baby.
Yes, yes. Just
Get that
don't
thing
hold.
spilled to the edge with a
Um,
300 pounder moving in motion.
let's let's flip sides of the ball here because we talked about it. Like if the Packers are going to win, it's going to be because they get a ton of pressure. They win up front their one-on-one battles, and it doesn't happen to be every play. The difference in turning a second and seven or a second and I should say a second and four into a second and eight, like that is a big win for any defense against this 49ers team. Talk to us a little bit about the pass rush because individually, this 49ers offensive line, they're not like overwhelmingly good. Like there are a lot of one-on-one battles that in most cases where they're not going to be favored outside of the left tackle. Do the Packers have the talent to make this a game up front?
Yeah, that's probably what the Packers are best at is generating pressure on the defensive side. Um, I know, you could look up the stats. They're not the Jets, right? They're not the Niners, but they're kind of like that next tier of pass rushers. Rashawn Gary, if he played a full season and had a full snap count, probably would have been a Pro Bowler. One thing about him though is he's got tight hips and he's going to end up losing contain, and that means read option. That means the backside of zone plays. That means not playing contain on boots. Dallas ran the same play in the low red zone two different times, where all Gary needed to do was play contain, and I think they got a score on one of them, and they got close to a score on another one. Preston
You,
Smith. Oh,
real
God.
quick, when you say that, the first play that comes to my mind is leave him unblocked, jet sweep, Debo, good night, red zone, or shovel
It's
pass.
that, it's naked boots, it's all sorts of stuff. Like Gary is one of the best players in the league in terms of being a power rusher, but he also does have flaws. He certainly does have flaws. So he's a really good pass rusher in drop back pass circumstances, but if you can keep it into a run game script and stuff like that, a lot of his positives don't end up flashing, right? Preston Smith's been playing really well as of lately. Really the last like 2 or 3 games. Um, he's a really good edge setter in general. That's kind of like what they have him do. He drops back into coverage when, hey, the Niners are going to do some funky stuff, right? You guys are going to come out in 21 personnel and play empty. Those are the situations where Preston Smith is probably going to line up in the slot because the Packers don't play a whole lot of man. So they're going to zone it. And if you want to get a lookie route against him, they were willing to give it up with Devontae Adams. Like that's just kind of how this thing ends up playing out, right? Um,
So
the
you telling
the
me that we're going to see backside slants
yes, yes.
with Gary lined up against pick your poison, Kittle,
Yes.
McCaffrey, Ayuk,
Well, it's
Debo.
going to be Preston. It's not going to be Gary. It's going to be Preston, which he's like 275
Does
pounds at
that
this point.
right?
Yeah. Dude, it's a funky thing. And Packers fans don't like it, but I don't know what you want to do. If you're running the 3-4 defense, this is what happens sometimes. Um, the other situation at the outside linebacker position is Kingsley Enagbare just got hurt. By the sounds of it, he tore his ACL. They haven't officially confirmed that, but Matt's already said, or Matt LaFleur, sorry, the head coach of the Packers has already said that like he's not going to be end up playing in this game, and it doesn't look good and all that stuff. So he played about 40% of the snaps on the edge. Again, Preston is on the older side, right? Gary was a guy who was working off of his own ACL injury to start the year, so that might have inflated his number a little bit relative to what would be expected for a guy off the bench in this game. But the fourth guy is going to be Lucas Van Ness, who kind of needs to step up in Igbare's place to kind of backfill in those snaps. Van Ness has kind of been like the anti-Gary, honestly. Like he's kind of the guy who chases down the backside of runs. He's the guy who can bring down, a guy like Justin Fields when he's scrambling and stuff like that. Like he's kind of
Sneaky
the,
pass.
not sneaky fast. That boy's an
Um,
athlete. I have a funny Van Ness story. When we were at the combine last year, I saw him locked out of his hotel.
wow,
He was just like in the pouring rain, just like forgot his key card, and I had to like let him in.
what
So
a college kid.
definitely fits in with the whole meathead thing. Um, at the interior defensive line, it's kind of a mixed bag right now. Wyatt's a guy who, former first round pick Devontae Wyatt, he's going to end up playing a lot of three tech, in this game. He's more of a pass rusher than anything else. He doesn't really contribute much in the ground game, but as you get him 1-on-1, a half man, right? He's going to be able to pin his ears back and kind of go. Kenny Clark has been playing D end in this season. Again, the Packers run a 3-4 defense. They play a lot of penny fronts, which is, you're playing your 3-4 box, right? But instead of taking out an interior defensive lineman to put the nickel on the field, you're taking out one of the inside linebackers, right? So he's playing the end. Slayton is playing the nose. Slayton is fine, and then the Packers do get a little bit of juice out of Carl Brooks, their 6th-round rookie, if you can believe that. He's another guy who kind of plays that end position. So it's a little bit of a mixed bag. Kenny's been playing better than his PFF stats and stuff like that. But at the line of scrimmage, they're pretty good. Where I get a little worried is linebacker, right? Or, off ball linebacker. Um, Quay Walker's a little up and down. He's a little late to see some of this stuff. Devondre Campbell's been dealing with, a neck injury that's kind of limited him this season. Isaiah McDuffie had a concussion that was pretty bad, kept him out of a game recently, and then just got a stinger. He went back into practice on Wednesday, so maybe there's a chance he ends up playing in this game. But they had this weird game plan where Isaiah McDuffie was actually the like early down starter for the Packers, and then they would rotate in Devondre Campbell as kind of like the passing down situation linebacker. Which, if you see Devondre Campbell move recently, not great. That's definitely where I'm most worried about this team is the linebacker level.
Yeah, and that's a good lead into the Shanoscope because he like they put linebackers in a blender every game, whether it's high lowing them or just isolating them in coverage against a Kittle, a McCaffrey or one of the wide receivers, and like that's what inevitably that's going to happen in this game, and it's going to be whether either Brock get the pass off, or the line protects. I wrote about it today. The Niners against empty, like they are the best in the NFL when they do that for obvious reasons because they have 5 eligibles who can really hurt you at any time.
Right.
Like,
And
are
that
you
kills Green Bay, by the way. Like the thing that worries me the most
stats say
that
it does. Like
offenses
their
do.
bottom.
This team is built to play against all these condensed formations and stuff, which like the Niners are definitely going to run and you know run situations, right? Um, but when you spread them out, that's when you get Devontae Adams on Preston Smith. That's when you get the Tampa Bay Buccaneers just putting Godwin in the slot and doing whatever they want for the entire game. That's when you get DJ Moore catching a drag and going for 40 yards because he's matched up one on one with Quay Walker. And if Quay Walker is a second late, right? That ends up becoming a big play. Even last game, against CeeDee Lamb. That was one thing that really worried me. I don't know what happened to the Dallas Cowboys in the first half of that game, but they just weren't able to connect with CeeDee. In the second half, that's kind of what I expected Dallas to do
Oh,
against
to
this
actually
Packers
throw
defense.
him the ball.
Yeah, like and have a lot of success doing it. So yeah, I mean, the fact that you guys can go five wide with a fullback on the field, right? Definitely worries me a little bit. Because then what do you do if you're the Packers? You go nickel? Okay. You have
Please,
two linebackers
please
who
do
aren't
that.
that great, and now the Niners can get into I formation, just run it downhill on you.
Yeah, and that's where I think like McCaffrey is going to have a lot of success running the ball this game because of that, because of like the late motions that they do to to run defenders out of their gaps. You talk about Quay Walker having bad eyes. This is not the team that you can have poor eye discipline against because if you watch this thing go this way, this player is going to go that way, and they really mess with you mentally. The 49ers, like aside from the motion, when they get to the outside, especially specifically running to the left, I think people don't really appreciate how fast of a human Trent Williams is. Like when you just adjust for his like size and athleticism, just watching him get to spots is unlike you can just put a clip of him beating guys to spots, and it is incredible to watch. Like, but it probably bore a lot of people to death, but seeing him move is just unreal. And then McCaffrey's patience, like he's one of the best at letting the lineman do the dirty work, and then he'll declare really late and he'll just shoot out the other side for an explosive play. Like he is so good at just being patient, but still presses the line of scrimmage. So I think he has an opportunity to run for a lot of yards because of a lot of things you talked about, whether it's the Packers just being bad with their eyes, slow at the second level, or just out of position in general. So like I'm pretty confident the 49ers are going to have success just based on that.
Yeah, and their run game hasn't been that great. The one good thing about this Packers defense is it kind of eliminates outside receivers, right? Just because they kind of put an umbrella on top of everything. They do good against condensed formations, but if you spread them out, there's going to be opportunities to throw against those low defenders, especially those linebackers, right?
High
And
low,
then,
baby.
yeah, and then in the run game, linebackers, again, not great. And then those safeties, that's not necessarily, a front, but those guys are in the fit, right? Jonathan Owens is nothing to write home about. Rudy Ford, who was part of the rotation, is now on injured reserve. And then Darnell Savage is kind of having a little bit of a better year than he has in the past in this system. But he's still not like a strong run defender. So, yeah, it definitely worries me that, if McCaffrey can make one guy miss, he might go to the house because
He
it's not
does
like
that.
these safeties are sure things either.
Yeah, he definitely does that. You're going to see, I imagine, a good amount of Debo and, Shanahan off the bye. He's probably going to have some wrinkles that, whether it's, gets a pass. I do think we're going to see a good portion of empty with just, slot fades, working the seams. Um,
This is my
like I
nightmare, by
said,
the way.
yeah, like high, low, cross, just hot, whatever it is. Just play hot potato. Brad Purdy's playing hot potato, getting out of his hand. When I say that, it doesn't just mean he's going to throw like slants and curls. Like he's going to heave it deep. And I mean, they've had a lot of success doing that this
Yeah,
season.
don't
So
throw it short. Our corners, they're not the best, but they'll jump routes, right?
I
Like
saw that. Yes,
Jair jump one, Carrington
he's
Valentine will
squatting.
jump one. Yeah, Keyshawn will jump everything that you throw to him, including in the red zone.
Toward the end of the season, they really started to open up and use Ayuk on like these double moves. So I think if there's a team to take advantage, like that would be this Packers route because they are really flat footed when it comes to cover. You can definitely tell that. But that'll do today, man. 40 minutes, going on 40 minutes, I should say. I don't need to do a production or prediction or anything like that. But appreciate you joining me, Justice. What before we get out of here, we got about a minute to go. What are you most looking forward to in this game from the matchups that we're talking about? Just keep it OLDO.
Oh wow. Um, I want to see how they handle Bosa. I mean,
Yeah.
that's really the simplest one. I know, you know, Matt's had really good game plans in the past to handle really good pass rushers. Again, chip help from D ends, keeping an extra running back in the game. They'll go chips when they go empty, right? Guys in like little wing positions to help out the edges. So I'm definitely interested in seeing how they handle Bosa, if Zach Tom can hang, if Rasheed Walker can hang.
Yeah, I want to see if, the talent gap is really what I think it is. When the Packers are on offense, are their offensive line against like the 49ers front? Like, will Eric Armstead be able to get over on guys fresh? Because last time, they were off a bye, they allowed 3 points. Like, they were really dominant. So they're going to be fresh. And it'll just be a fun watch to see them energized. So thanks for everybody for listening. And I'm going to join Justis here coming up in a couple of days. I'm sure we're going to talk about the other players on the field. So thanks, everybody, and take care.